today, President Park Geun-hye arrives in Ethiopia on a three-nation tour to Africa that's expected to strengthen economic, trade and cultural ties with the region. As speculation swirls about a possible run for the South Korean presidency next year, visiting UN Chief Ban Ki-moon says he will ponder his future once his term ends. First, the leaders of the United States and Japan agree to strengthen defense capabilities against the nuclear and missile threats posed by North Korea. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Thursday, May 26th here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story this morning, President Park Geun-hye has arrived in Ethiopia, the first stop of her trip to East Africa. The president has laid out her vision for Ethiopia and Africa, which she will likely discuss with the country's leaders during summit talks later on this Thursday. Our presidential office correspondent Song Ji-son reports from Addis Ababa.
Brothers by blood. That's how President Park referred to Korea's relationship with Ethiopia upon arriving in the only African country that sent troops to fight in the Korean War in the 1950s. In an interview with the Ethiopian Herald, the country's state-run daily, Park pledged Korea will stand as Ethiopia's reliable partner on its path towards growth and development. Ethiopia, boasting economic growth of 10% last year, is eagerly pushing its growth and transformation plan aimed at mid to long-term development. Anticipating the country to emerge as Africa's economic powerhouse, Seoul hopes to expand investment in Ethiopia and help local industries grow. Park listed 3 pillars of cooperation to develop Korea-Ethiopia relations in a mutually beneficial manner to grow and learn together. First, through Korea Aid, a new official development aid program offering health and cultural services on wheels. Seoul will also share its know-how on socio-economic development, which it learned particularly through Korea's Hemaul Undong, a movement of modernizing rural communities. Cultural exchanges will be another key to deepen understanding between the two countries. In summit talks with Ethiopia's Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn and in a separate session with President Mulatu Teshome on Thursday, President Park will discuss ways to reinforce cooperation in areas ranging from trade and investment to defense, peacekeeping, and healthcare. Song Ji-son, Arirang News, Addis Ababa.
Now, South Korea's friendly ties with Ethiopia stretch back to the Korean War in the early 1950s, when Ethiopia was the only African country to dispatch troops to help the South. Since then, relations between the two countries have progressed steadily. For a look back at how the countries have supported each other over the years, Oh Se-young reports.
Meet Addis Lulu, a chemical engineering student from Ethiopia.
I've completed the Korean language program for 1 year. So now I'm attending my master's program. I was able to know that there was scholarship in Korea, and I have always wanted to come to Korea because of my grandfather has a story with Korea.
His grandfather was one of the 6,000 Ethiopian soldiers who defended the South during the Korean War. Emperor Haile Selassie sympathized with Korea's ordeal under Japanese colonization and dispatched a battalion to support the South. Ethiopia lost 121 soldiers in the conflict, and more than 500 were injured. After the ceasefire in 1953, Ethiopia helped the South rebuild the country, providing medical support and welfare. Since 1991, Korea has been repaying Ethiopia's generosity with official development assistance.
In terms of the budget supported, Ethiopia is the largest beneficiary among the African countries. KOICA touches upon the goals of areas of focus, which are health, education, rural development, public administration, ICT, and other cross-sector issues such as climate change and gender.
Korea's aid to Ethiopia has so far reached around $108 million, and this year there are 11 bilateral projects underway. Korea also supports veterans' descendants with scholarship for students in Ethiopia from elementary school to university. For postgraduate studies, students like Lulu have the chance to study in Korea. Reflecting on President Park Geun-hye's state visit to Ethiopia this week, Lulu says he hopes for stronger ties between the two countries. However, he fears that many Koreans have forgotten the foundation of their friendship.
I don't think the young people especially know about Ethiopia. Some of the seniors know, but the young people doesn't seem to know about Ethiopia. So I think you need to work on this. I think you need to introduce the story. It seems to be forgotten.
오수영, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea has been unanimously selected to host the annual conference of the African Development Bank in 2018. The Finance Ministry says all 80 member countries of the bank agreed to hold the conference in Korea's southern port city of Busan. Seoul's Vice Finance Minister had been bidding for South Korea to host the 2018 event at this year's conference, which began Tuesday in Zambia. India will host the event next year, Equatorial Guinea in 2019 and Ghana in 2021. The conference will be held at the bank's headquarters in Ivory Coast in the year 2020. Now, President Park Geun-hye will move on to France following her three-nation tour of Africa. She's heading there to mark the 130th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Korea and France. Ahead of her visit, we're going to take a look at some of the significant moments in the two sides' relations. Kim Hye-sung reports.
Korea and France marked the beginning of diplomatic relations in 1886 with the Treaty of Friendship, Commerce and Navigation. Later, during the Korean War, France fought alongside the South, sending more than 3,400 soldiers. Since then, the two countries have cooperated on major global issues, including climate change and North Korea. On the economic front, bilateral ties can be divided into four phases. In the 1970s, when Korea was focused on development, 70 French companies helped build power plants and roads in the country. Around the 1988 Seoul Olympic Games, French companies in consumer goods and insurance entered Korea. The Asian financial crisis was another turning point with mergers and joint ventures such as the one that produced Renault Samsung Motors. Chairman of the French-Korean Chamber of Commerce and Industry explains the last phase.
2011, the fair trade agreement between Europe and Korea, and this did increase a lot the exchange. For example, at that time we were 200 companies in our organization, and today, 5 years after this agreement, we are 350.
Cultural exchanges began with the opening of cultural centers in the late 1960s. Since then, Koreans have come to appreciate French literature and cuisine. More recently, the Korean wave, or Hallyu, has ignited French people's interest in Korean culture.
I've been working hard for the past 15 years to tell French people more about Korea. In recent years, I've seen their interest in Korean culture, fashion, and literature soar.
Given all that Korean and French people are learning about one another through bilateral relationships so far, ties between the two countries are expected to grow even stronger in the years to come. Kim Hye-sung, Arirang News.
Now, the government rolled out a comprehensive plan to promote Korea's bio-industry on Wednesday, and this industry is widely viewed as the nation's next growth engine after information technology, IT. For more on Korea's grand three-year biosector boosting plan, Kim Ji-yeon reports.
The Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning mapped out a three-year plan until 2018 to boost key growth areas of the biosector. The plan is a result of discussions of a 20-member panel comprised of senior government officials and civilian experts at the second Biospecial Committee meeting held on Wednesday. Under the plan, the ministry will set aside more than $109.8 million as R&D investment in the development of new medicine and medical devices and the prevention of the spread of infectious diseases. The government has decided to create funds of a combined $67.6 million to support the creation of bio-startups. It will also lower the bar for local bio firms to be listed on the tech-heavy Kosdaq market by allowing them to list even if they own less than 20% of the company's shares. The ministry also says it will strive to resolve structural problems, such as a lack of a coordinated strategy and overlapping projects by government offices and relevant institutions, which is currently seen as hindering the local bio industry's global competitiveness. The Bio Special Committee meeting serves as the control tower of the country's bio-related policy since March this year and was established as part of efforts to turn the country into one of the world's top 7 biohealth powerhouses by 2020. Kim Jian, Arirang News.
UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon is back on home soil for a short trip. Local reporters bombarded him with questions on his first day in Korea, mostly on whether he's planning to run for the South Korean presidency. For more on the UN chief's comments, Kim reports.
In a meeting with a group of senior journalists on Korea's southern resort island of Jeju on Wednesday, UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon said that he will contemplate his future after completing his term in office as the UN chief. He said that he will think about how he could contribute to the development of his home country after his second 5-year term ends this December.
As of now, I am the UN Secretary-General. I will think about my role as a South Korean citizen when I return.
Many are considering his statement as a sign of willingness to run as a candidate, since Ban has been keeping his distance from domestic politics so far. The ruling Saenuri Party has reportedly been trying to woo Ban to join the party after experiencing a crushing defeat in last month's general election. However, when asked today on whether President Park invited him to join her party, Ban said that such a scenario should not and cannot happen. He said that the most important thing on his mind as of the moment is to honorably complete his current duties as the head of the United Nations. Regarding North Korea, Ban claimed that he has been pushing to maintain a dialogue channel between the two Koreas and added that if there is an opportunity in the future, he will continue such efforts. Kim Arirang News.
Now, Ban Ki-moon is one of the thousands of leaders from the world of politics and business that have gathered on Korea's southern resort island of Jeju to discuss peace and security and to explore a new order potentially for the Asian region. Gwon So-ah is there and she filed this report.
Here, against the peaceful backdrop of South Korea's Jeju Island, special guests have arrived from all around the world to put their heads together and talk about promoting peace, prosperity, and more. It's the 11th installment of the Jeju Forum, with the attendance of its biggest ever number of political, business, and academic leaders to accelerate cooperation in East Asia and beyond. As part of that, former Japanese Prime Minister Tomiichi Murayama, well known for his Murayama Statement in 1995, in which he apologized for Japan's wartime wrongdoings, spoke about Seoul-Tokyo ties.
It's true that Korea-Japan relations had deteriorated since Prime Minister Shinzo Abe took office, but I see sincerity in Japan and Korea's foreign ministers' agreement last year.
That being the landmark deal on the Japanese military sexual enslavement of Korean women during World War II. But as the agreement has not been accepted by everyone, including many of their surviving victims themselves, Murayama went on to make a suggestion.
I think it's a good idea for Prime Minister Abe himself to write a letter of apology to the victims.
Cooperation between the three major powers in the region, South Korea, China, and Japan, was also stressed by the former prime minister, a key topic at many sessions at the forum. Yang Ho-ran, China's former special envoy for Korean Peninsula affairs, says while the three have many geographic, cultural, economical advantages to accelerate cooperation, conflicts coexist.
A different country has different ideas, so difference is normal. But how to deal with these differences properly, that is a challenge for us, especially the political trust, and how to face history squarely and look into the future.
And to underline issues like these, prominent figures will share their vision on Asia's new order and cooperative leadership, the theme of this year's event, on Thursday, including UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon, who set his foot on the island, his first stop during his one-week visit to South Korea. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News, Jeju.
US President Barack Obama and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe have agreed to boost defense capabilities against North Korean threats. Obama made the remark in a press conference with Abe after the two held a summit in Ise-shima, Japan. The two leaders are in the Japanese city ahead of the G7 summit, which begins there later on this Thursday. Once that summit ends on Friday, President Obama will travel to Hiroshima. The White House says Obama will visit the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park and attend a wreath-laying ceremony. Calls have emerged from South Korea for Obama to also visit a monument for the Korean victims that is in that park. White House officials say Obama will use the visit to highlight his commitment to a nuclear-free world and to honor all the innocent lives lost during the war. A top US military official says he expects North Korea to collapse much sooner than many of us think due to internal unrest. Former US Forces Korea Commander Walter Sharp's remarks were reported by the website military.com. At a symposium in Hawaii this week, Sharp said he recently guaranteed the new USFK Commander General Vincent Brooks that there would be major changes on the peninsula before his term ends. Sharp predicted there will be strong provocations by North Korea that could quickly escalate into a much bigger conflict. This, combined with instability in North Korea, would hasten the collapse, according to Sharp. He called for the need to prepare, adding that both the UN and China will have roles to play in that event. Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you, as always, for watching. We'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. Our next scheduled bulletin coming up at 10 a.m. Korea time. So until then, goodbye.